If we can find it, what we might be able to say today, that only now does it appear that the entire book of Daniel has been fully unsealed. And that unsealing process would come to an end, which we might speculate, formally and officially, maybe with that very comment comes to an end today. You could have a little fun with that. And now more of Daniel, I think close to all of Daniel, is unsealed, and now you better understand there's an early thrust. Daniel 12, 4 and 9, knowledge has been increased, and Daniel has been unsealed, which would seem to be, that last one should be on the list of things you're grateful for. You lived to see and watch and understand Daniel as it was unsealed right before your eyes, sort of in slow motion. It's an amazing thing to contemplate. By the time we're done today, I think it's fair to say, I could always see something else, I think it's fair to say the book of Daniel will be fully, completely, and utterly unsealed. It's about 90%, maybe 80% if you want to be conservative, but I'm going to show you something else the church missed all during my lifetime, but it is right. It is right. As far as I can see, Daniel is unsealed. Now you're going to want to remember, I'm going to open the book of Revelation to you, and frankly, the book of Revelation could not be said to be unsealed until every one of you understand what I'm going to show you now. This is the most mind-blowing things right now, the whole sermon really, but right now, this is the most mind-blowing thing that I have ever preached since God put me in the ministry back about 48 years ago. So nobody had any chance to understand Revelation until God opened it up to a final servant and said, it's go time. Now do it, because once you unseal this, we're close. Now, unless somebody wants to say, everything you said last night's wrong. Revelation is now fully unsealed. It appears to be the very last bit of the ration of Luke 12. Can I just tell you, in defense of Mr. Armstrong, he gets more apology than I do. Let me tell you why. It was sealed to him. It's not unsealed to me. So in a way, if I make a mistake with Revelation, it's a little bit more on me. Somebody had to clear it up at the end. Unsealing Daniel. We're going to go do some more fascinating digging in Daniel. Go, how do we miss that? In a minute. But first you've got to realize there's another reason besides just telling us we're at the time of the end. Oh, Daniel's unsealed, so's Revelation, we're near the end. There's another giant reason why it had to be unsealed at the end. And that's another element of Daniel that was never unsealed until tonight. I discovered it a while back and finally was able to weave it all in, and it makes perfect sense. I will explain to you how unsealing the book of Revelation to the restored church of God does not trigger the time being in goose after it. Remember we talked about that? It does not. But the time, whatever it is, precedes Christ's return. So the ration is near the end, I'm telling you. There's nothing left to say. Daniel and Revelation were just unsealed. Certainly the end of April is an hour we think not. Nobody ever thought this, if it came. I wish I'd known Daniel was still sealed. Nobody told me that. I was under the impression Daniel was open. I wish I'd have known Revelation is still sealed. I had no idea until I came to understand what it says at the very end of it, that right before Christ returns, it's unsealed. I guess you could sort of say Revelation really isn't finally unsealed in the greatest, fullest sense until maybe even today. So then does that put us on a really tight clock to the time, which is the kingdom, which is the Father and Christ coming and all saints coming, and we meet the Apostle Paul, and I see my parents and you see your relatives. I don't know, it could be any day. Is it possible that we could find metrics, prophesied metrics that have been fulfilled so we know the summer of what year? you read what he says to me. He says to me, seal not the sayings of prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Now, what I did today is I unsealed the last part of the book that I can see, which is the mysterious verse about the mystery of God. There was coming a time, I thought we'd already reached it, but there was coming a time when all of Revelation would be unsealed to us. And I think tonight was unsealed, one of the greatest truths in all of the Bible. And if you're going to spend a lot of time called eternity, you ought to know where you're going to spend it. And we just learned a lot more about that. It's fast when this book is unsealed. We're the only servants alive on earth, and for that matter, even in the past, who fully understand this. This is fascinating knowledge. I hope you're electrified. Because particularly if we can show in many other ways as we keep reading that this is the unsealing of the great mystery, the how and when that Jesus Christ returns to earth. Last word of 9 is God, and he says to me, and I've understood for quite a while, I'm supposed to seal not the sayings of the prophets of this book, and here it is again, for the time is at hand. That could just as easily say, because Christ is coming quickly, unseal it. And Revelation could not be considered unsealed until we understood its guts, the center of it. And you can throw me into Revelation. I went through this with the ministers. You can throw me into the book of Revelation. Spin me around 3 times, blindfold me, then I go to bed, get up, don't have coffee, and you point at a place in Revelation, I'll tell you what it means. That book is unsealed, and what wasn't is tonight, has been tonight. So, we could say the short clock of Revelation being unsealed really didn't start until we got all these things. We're almost there, and I'm unsealing Revelation to its 4 corners tonight. There's nothing you don't know about Revelation. The only thing God doesn't know is whether you'll hold to it no matter how long you have to wait, because the time is close. There's nothing else for me to tell you about this book. We're chiefly looking at being sure we have a full picture of Revelation. It's Revelation that is to be unsealed. It's the sayings and the prophecy of this book that once they're completely unsealed tell us time is almost up. So I hope you're excited by these things. For some reason, God decided to tie the return of Jesus Christ to unsealing all of these critical elements of the book of Revelation. And without understanding this verse, Daniel could never be considered unsealed. So today, and not before today, and you won't doubt this in about 3 minutes, today and not before today is Daniel fully unsealed. Now, as far as I can see, Daniel and Revelation are now unsealed. And you know all that happens after Christ comes, I believe, quickly. Good afternoon. Too early to say good night. Daniel, we're going to unseal some more of it here in a bit. The next thing I discovered was in Daniel 7. Now we're going to turn over, and in so doing, we're going to literally watch in front of our eyes God open up some more of Daniel. If you will, unseal a little more of it. If Daniel had been unsealed, we would have been looking for a 7th head that lasted a year and an 8th head that lasted 3.5 years, and we were not to really understand either. We weren't. I mean, God says so. I'm not really interpreting anything. I'm just telling you things straight up. So they were sealed from us. But you can't understand the 1 year unless you know how to, at the end, because God unsealed Daniel and Revelation, know where to place those. You'll see more clearly why if Daniel had been unsealed, if we had understood this, if Mr. Armstrong had understood it, anybody else, we would have realized we can't be waiting for these things. But this is to tell us ultimately, when it was God's time to unseal Revelation, just exactly who this mighty angel is that's dropping out of the cloud. It's Christ. We all know that. You already have known the things in this book. It's been unsealed to you for a long time. Months and in some parts of it, years. And understanding that now, frankly, cracks open the entire book of Daniel. It's now unsealed, and the Bible says it's unsealed when you got there. That is truly the last jot and tittle of Daniel being unsealed. If that happens, and it's called the now of the end, time there means the now, the when of the end, you tell me how long we have. We're in the season now. I know that because I can see the day approaching. That's why you need to study the news even though you want to punch out your television. Daniel has been unsealed. We're near the time of the end. Until that's understood, in any applicable way that helps us, you couldn't say Daniel was unsealed and you can't be at the time of the end. So you ought to just think about that for a moment. So as of Monday night, the best I can see, Daniel was unsealed. Now we can read it much more correctly. We can read it definitively and absolutely with no ifs, ands, or buts about the message that it's telling us. It's powerful and it's settled, and in many ways it's the truest and final unsealing of the book of Daniel before it would be on a list of things to be unsealed in a broader way. The Bible says when Daniel is unsealed, and who could argue that Daniel is now completely unsealed? I don't think you could throw me in there in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep on any verse and I couldn't tell you what it means. And you'd be about the same. It should now be noted that Daniel is completely unsealed, and in a way no one could have ever anticipated. And it's far, far, far different than what I believed when God called me in 1966. And I thought it was unsealed then. Now, why is that important? Because it's unsealed at the time of the end. How are you going to go another year? Tuesday locked and loaded God's prophecy, both what he's going to do and essentially, approximately, we will say, when. Now, Daniel is interesting. We've talked about it before. Daniel was unsealed. We thought it was before. Well, not as we are now. Although I told you 2 days ago that Daniel was unsealed. Well, a large element in it, you could say small or large, you could define it two different ways, was not clear 2 days ago, but I'd thought about it weeks and even months ago, and I want to bring it up because it's critical, and there's no possible way, in light of what I'm going to tell you before the sermon's over, that you could say Daniel was unsealed without understanding this. Daniel 12, and let's take one last look at what maybe wasn't unsealed in a final way until now. Watch the harvest and watch the news. Things will continue to get worse, but only now is Daniel unsealed. Good night. Now, if we don't know that, then I guess it'd be hard to understand or believe that Daniel has been unsealed until even yet now. You see, if you missed a whole giant government, the power of the hand, then Daniel still wasn't unsealed 100 hours ago or 96 hours ago. Knowledge is increased when that happens. It may not be the church came to understand Daniel and now it's unsealed, which I'm sure it is in our thinking and in my mind. In our thinking and in my mind. In our thinking and in my mind. There are a series of things that tell us you cannot get out of the month Kislev, or we haven't been paying attention to metrics. Number one, Daniel is now truly, fully unsealed. It's got to be close. You can't go over 23 more days. So we're there, although I'm not sure we can fully say Daniel's unsealed until we cover a bit more information. So if he's rushing to call this out in the days of his voice, remember he's hurrying because we're close, so that's a metric. Daniel is unsealed, although we're going to improve on it tomorrow. I mean, if God can keep it sealed from us and from mankind for thousands of years, he could go as long as he wanted. And when he's ready to unseal it, then there it is. It's unsealed. And until he is, we could run around the barn 1,000 times, 1,000 lifetimes, and never figure it out. So I now understand, and you will too, and that's the balance of this first sermon. Now, related to Daniel, Daniel's finally fully unsealed, right down to the 1335 and understanding chapter 10. I get the book. I get the book, I get its math, I understand the whole deal. I just do. We were never going to know the 45 days until it was unsealed, by the way. And when it was unsealed, you'd be near the time of the end. Note that. I couldn't get that 45 days right to save my life. Now, these are things that were in sealed books. Remember, the book of Daniel is unsealed at the very end, and I've thought many times it's unsealed. Well, not until tonight, which puts us very close to the end because anybody can look at their calendar and know we're running out of time. I thought we would have run out of time before, but after I explain to you what I'm going to tell you, per math, you'll see that we haven't, and you'll pretty much know how much time we have left because of math. I could apologize for not being able to figure out what no one who's ever lived has figured out. Or I could tell you, brethren, isn't it wonderful? We finally got this pinned down at the end because it means Daniel's unsealed. We are not seeking the 1335. 100 billion people will be. So I wanted that to be clear. And until that's clear, Daniel isn't completely unsealed. You got to get that straight. That's a big deal. This is the best I can do, brethren. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm doing the best I can because this book will be unsealed soon enough when knowledge is increased. And I keep thinking I see the whole thing, but this one last thing is interesting. Abib 1 put us in a position where it was finally time, and God does say this book will be completely unsealed right when you've reached the end. So we're going to sit here for the balance of this short message. And we're going to exercise our mind as hard as we can. Like Daniel, I didn't understand it, but now that I do, it does leave you wondering, is Daniel finally unsealed with all these verses in a way we could have never gotten to until it was made plain? And the real mystery of God is over. There was a man who rushed to call it out because it wasn't far away. Daniel is now unsealed. Mostly because we found the sixth head. We have to know what follows Daniel being resealed. And this has got to be unsealed to us in a way. So we've got to know it before it's resealed for 7 years. Here's what we got wrong. Daniel is sealed all the way through the year, and we're going to see it's unsealed after the year. Not sealed through it and to it, not unsealed through it and to it, and then back to sealed again. So let me explain what we missed. There's no possible way to read that beforehand. I misread Daniel 9, so let's go on over there for a moment. Daniel 9. So when is Daniel unsealed? Well, let's look at Daniel 9. First of all, it illustrates the complexity of trying to figure out a lot of these things. They're not easy. Thank God he opened the little book or we'd never figure it out. Thank God he unsealed Daniel too. He unsealed both of them and we're able to put two books together nobody else can understand. It's literally a miraculous thing we're experiencing. But it doesn't mean Mr. Pack gets it right every time because it's incredibly complex even with them open. And nobody understands this, but it's as plain as day when God opens it up. And remember, Daniel being unsealed is a sign that we're near the end. I never understood this until recently. We couldn't have been near the end. But I do now. All of Daniel is opening up to us. We might want to ask, are we right near the time of the end? Big, 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 big question. We often thought it was unsealed before, but we didn't understand certain things. Well, we better understand these 3.5 moads, these 3.5 times. Daniel absolutely agrees. Now, the book is unsealed. Now, look, you understand the book. You tell me why we'd wait another year. I can tell you that every space and every syllable in Daniel is unsealed, and you're supposed to be at the time of the end. This is the third thing. I can tell you there's nothing left to know. Right down to the 3.5 days moves to the end of the 7 years. How could God wait another year? Daniel's not going to grow more chapters or more spaces or more numbers. I know where they all fit, and so do you. And I know that they all fit off of an Abib 1. So I can tell you that the mystery of God is finished. The little book is described as open. At the same time, Daniel is unsealed. I know what it is. When Elijah sounds to the nations, the little book is open. It's understood. That's revelation. And Daniel is unsealed at the time of the end. They're right there. I'm just telling you, you know what Daniel and Revelation mean. But as we go on over to Daniel 10, it's perfect for me to say, understanding that 1335 and what I'm going to tell you right now, truly, Daniel is unsealed. We have to be near the time of the end. The little book of Revelation is open, and so is Daniel. If there's something wrong, then God is doing something with timing that we just cannot yet know. It led me to discover, and I want to just sort of read this very carefully in Daniel 9, to a discovery rather, in Daniel 9 that truly unseals the book. And believe me, God unsealed Daniel in a most spectacular way. Daniel being unsealed is its own great proof of time being short. Until this verse alone was unsealed, there's no way the book of Daniel was unsealed. This becomes actually a crucial part of unsealing Daniel. If we don't understand the 7 and the 62 weeks, and maybe one other thing, I don't know if you can say Daniel's unsealed. You're going to stand up at the end of those days. We just listed 2,625 days. And when you understand that, the book's unsealed. Now, I'll talk about what Mr. Armstrong believed, but it's almost too simple to be. Can it be? The answer is yes. And God would not have given this number unless he wanted us to know it. In fact, Daniel cannot be considered unsealed without it. Daniel is now finally, completely unsealed, and this is a metric. We must be at the time of the end. So learning the 1335, and thus, in a way, you could say the final great unsealing of Daniel seems to invoke Habakkuk 2, where it'll surely come. After a final message, there's a tiny, tiny micron, to quote Paul's version of that, and it will surely come. He that comes will arrive. Is Daniel now unsealed, which is what we thought? We can't say it was unsealed earlier. Not if it's unsealed at the time of the end.